Hello. Today we're going to go over solving absolute value equations using algebra. And these equations, they are pretty straightforward with one extra step at the end. We're going to do our multi-step situations and operations to get to where we need to go. So it's going to be very simple and easy, and we'll get right through it. First and foremost, the first thing we need to go over is that the absolute value must be on its own. We cannot have anything attached to it, as in a coefficient in front or a number that's added or subtracted to it. So the first thing I do, just like we do with multi-step equations, is I do an inverse operation by adding the 5 to the other side. We have added the 5 to the other side. At this point, all we need to do is create two equations, one for a positive, one for a negative, and that is all. So we are going to take v plus 8 equals 7. If you notice, for the positive one, nothing has changed. And then for the negative one, the left side stays the same, only the right side becomes negative. That's all we're going to do. We are going to solve these individually, and we see v is equal to -1 on the left. We add -8 over here, subtract 8, v equals -15. So we have two values that satisfy this equation, right? And that way, we're going to get what we do. So we can always test these answers by plugging them in for v. So if I plug in -1 first, we will easily see that this becomes a 7. We have 7 minus 5, which is 2, which is true. And we can try the next one, which is -15 plus 8. And as you see, this also becomes a -7 on the inside of that absolute value. Taking the absolute value gives us a +7 for our 2 to equal to 2. That's what we got going on. All right, let us move on to the next question. So in that last one, we needed to add or subtract first in order to solve for the equation. In this one, there is no adding or subtracting that is involved, but we do have a coefficient. We do need to take care of that coefficient. So all I'm going to do is divide by -5 to both sides. We see my absolute value, and we see that 115 divided by 5 is 23. That's it. All we're going to do now is separate between my positive and my negative equations. The positive equation stays exactly the same. The negative equation, only the right side gets flipped or multiplied by -1. Then please just solve. Subtract 3, 4k equals 20. Divide by 4. K is equal to 5. Minus 3. 4k is equal to -26. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. K is equal to -13 over 2. So as you can see, those are our two answers. And those, if we just, plug into a calculator, you'll see if we plug this, multiply that one by 4, add it by 3, we will get a -23 inside of the absolute value. But to save some time, we are going to move on and solve for the next two. There are our answers for that one, 5 and -13 over 2. All right. Let's solve for these two and call it a day. First things first, we notice that we have an addition and a coefficient. So just like we're solving for x, we're going to treat this guy like a giant x. We got to get the absolute value by itself first. So first I'm going to subtract 2. We'll get -5. 5m minus 5 is equal to -75. Then I will divide by -5. And then we see my absolute value is completely on its own by itself. We're good to go. 75 divided by 5 is 15. Positive because negative divided by negative is a positive. Then all we do is separate, adding a positive in a negative equation. 5m minus 5 equals 15. 5m minus 5 equals -15. And that's all. We're going to add that 5 over, solve, divide by 5, m equals 4. Add that 5 over, 5m equals -10. We will divide by that 5, m equals -2. So we have m equals 4 and -2. Easy. Let's do one last one. First thing I need to do is my absolute value by itself. It is not. So what we need to do is add the 9 first. 6, 1 minus 5x absolute value is equal to 66. Divide by 6 to both sides. We have now my absolute value completely by itself. At this point, we are just going to separate positive and negative, just like we've been doing this whole time. The positive side does not change. The negative side, only the right side changes, on the right side of the equal sign. Solve each of them individually. And as you can tell, this has now become a very straightforward process. This went from, oh my goodness, this is confusing, to not too bad. And we can see that our two solutions are -2 and 12 over 5. So as we can clearly see, all we need to do, get absolute value by itself, separate from positive to negative. A positive equation, a negative equation, only change the right side of the equal sign, solve. And that will solve all of these absolute value equations. Now, in the next video, we're going to go over more complicated absolute value equations. And then in the video after that, we will be going over graphing absolute value equations. Hope you guys had a great time.